Let's imagine together. You receive an eviction notice taped to your door, or you just lost your job out of the blue. Maybe you got a medical bill that is way higher than you can pay, or your landlord raised your rent by $200 and what was affordable is now unreasonable. What can you do? For many people, homelessness feels sudden, but what if it isn't sudden at all? What if it's predictable? What if housing instability isn't the result of a one-off decision, but the outcome of how we've structured housing itself? If we want families housed, we need to examine the systems they're navigating. I'm Gwen Griffith, and this is Until They're Housed, a series by Family Promise of Spokane, which is an organization in Spokane, Washington that is ending the cycle of homelessness by helping families get and keep housing. When a family loses housing, we often ask, what went wrong? We blame the person for not being good enough at their job or not being able to manage money well enough. They must have made bad decisions to get them in this situation. And yes, life sometimes includes setbacks. But here's the deeper question. How much margin for error does the family actually have? What safety net is there? Today in many communities, including Spokane, rent has risen faster than wages. Housing inventory remains tight, affordable units are limited, childcare costs are through the roof, and healthcare costs are unpredictable. That doesn't sound like a path to stability and success to me. In Spokane, around 48% of families are rent burdened, which is when you pay 30% or more of your income on rent and utilities. That's a big deal. When over 30 to 50% of income goes toward rent, a single big event, like a hospital stay, a job loss, or a change in financial situations, can destabilize a household quickly. And not because families are reckless, but because the system leaves very little cushion. And get this, that's not by accident, it's by design. So how did we get here? Let's take a look back in time to find out. Housing policy in the United States was not originally designed to guarantee stability. Home ownership became one of the main ways people built wealth over time, but access to that opportunity was not equal. Housing policy in the US really started to take shape during the Great Depression, when the government stepped in to deal with a growing household crisis. In 1932 alone, about 273,000 Americans lost their homes, and millions more were no longer part of the regular housing market. In simple terms, a lot of people lost the ability to pay for housing and had nowhere stable to live. So in 1934, President FDR, along with the National Housing Act, created the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, which helped millions of people buy homes, which provided a lifeline for many. But there was a catch: redlining. The government made maps of cities and neighborhoods, and they color-coded them based on how safe they thought it was going to be to give out loans. If a neighborhood was marked in red, a literal red line, it meant don't lend money here. The problem? A lot of the neighborhoods marked in red were mostly Black communities. So people living there were denied access to those government-backed home loans, not because of their finances, but because of where they lived and who they were. A few years later, the Housing Act of 1937 created the public housing system we still use today. After World War II, the GI Bill made it easier for many veterans to buy homes, but again, Black veterans were often excluded. Around the same time, the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 built highways that cut through low-income neighborhoods, displacing people and contributing to more separation between communities. In 1968, the Fair Housing Act was passed to make housing discrimination illegal, which was a big step forward. Then in 1974, Section 8 vouchers were introduced to help people afford rent. This is still used, but not everyone who needs that help can access it. Often vouchers are in limited supply, take years to receive, and can be taken back if you don't find housing in a specific amount of time. More recently, policies have made things even more complicated. The Fair Cloth Amendment in 1999 limited how much public housing could be built, which means less housing for more people who need it. When you step back, you can see a pattern. Many of those policies helped some people, but left many out, and often focused on short-term fixes instead of building systems that truly supports long-term stability for everyone. Those policies didn't just affect one generation either. Once you're behind in access, you remain behind. Those who have momentum forward continue in that direction. Newton may not have been talking about housing with his laws of motion, but they certainly apply here. Over time, we built a housing system that rewards ownership, restricts supply, leaves renters with limited protection, and decides who can rise up and who is held back. Again, not accidental, designed. So let's zoom into our community. Spokane reflects many of these national patterns. As housing demands increase and supplies tighten, rent burden rises. In Spokane, in 2019, the average rent was about $885. By 2025, it was up to $1,444. That's a 69% increase. For a dual-income household with stable employment, this might feel manageable. But for a single parent, a family recovering from illness, a household without savings, that same housing market becomes a high risk. Those same families then start to cycle through staying with friends or at motels, receiving evictions, or even staying in shelters. Not because they haven't tried to support their families, but because the structure is unforgiving. So we need to address the elephant in the room. Conversations about homelessness often polarize quickly. One side argues personal responsibility matters, and it does. The other side argues the system is broken, and that's also true. But the reality is a lot more complicated. Personal decisions happen inside of systems. So if the system provides a safety net, then mistakes are survivable. If the system removes these safety nets, then the same mistakes can be catastrophic. Understanding this doesn't mean we get rid of accountability or responsibility. It clarifies context. And if we're serious about housing as the outcome, if we want every child to have a place to call home, and for homelessness to be something that will be eliminated, context matters. Let's break this down a bit more. If homelessness were purely the result of individual circumstances, then individual solutions would be enough. But when we understand homelessness as a systematic issue, shaped by housing markets, wages, policies, and access to opportunity, then our solutions have to go deeper. They need to address the root causes, not just the immediate need. Providing shelter is great, and it matters so much to the family who has a safe place to sleep tonight. But shelter alone doesn't resolve the underlying reasons that family needs help in the first place. Because of that, the conversation has to expand beyond short-term fixes. We need to think about how systems are designed and how they can work better for everyone. No single group created the system we have today on its own, and it will take more than one group to change it. Real solutions require collaboration across industries: housing, employment, healthcare, policy, communities working together to create lasting stability. Homelessness feels sudden when it shows up at a family's door. But when you step back, the patterns are visible. Rising rent costs, limited supply of housing, wages not increasing, historical policy decisions, shrinking margins. Homelessness isn't random. It's predictable. And if something is predictable, it can be prevented. This series isn't about awareness alone. It's about understanding what it actually takes to ensure families are stable. It's like we say, stability isn't just an idea, it's an address. And we know how to get people home. See you here next time.